at the numbers involved and the fact that we are going to become a minority in our own country before 2050, well before 2050 for the younger people, that I term to be genocide. And I'm backed up again by the United Nations definition on genocide, which quite specifically says, in the present convention, genocide means any of the acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethical, racial or religious group, and deliberately inflicting on that group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part. Now, go to any city centre, which is inundated with the third world. You will not see any white people in Tower Hamlets. You won't see white people in all parts of Luton, parts of Leicester, all across the country, because they have been driven out. They have lost their right to exist as a culture and a race in their own country. This is what's happened in an incredibly short period of time.
Years back, our African grandmothers and grandfathers crossed the seas to go and labor in the Americas and Europe. They could only get what they were given, and the house N-word and the field N-word were defined based on what the white superiors said. They could not own land or other possessions. They could not get into any professions because they were limited to the certain tasks that they're supposed to do in the European countries and the American countries. The little controlled wages or none at all. They were separated from their families, and the story of Senbe Pierre recounts the treacherous act that even today we ignore like it never happened. What do we say? Anyway, it's all over now. Things are different because our brothers and sisters are using planes and not ships. They make applications and now they're given visas. Back in the days, they were abducted, right? But what if I tell you that it still remains the same concept, but it's just a little bit institutionalized, and there are some good words that are put like human rights and equality to lure you into the shackles that still caught our grandmothers and grandfathers. And no one is in chains and shackles anymore. Those were replaced by these changing government policies and visas and conditions of the immigration policy. Today, I want to talk about two things. First, the UK government has decided to do away with a large number of Africans. Immigrants coming into the country. And secondly, they're now tightening their screws on the defined certificate of sponsorship. For those who do not know, I will assist you to get the picture. If you're new here, please just subscribe, join the family. Now, let's get to it. Now, the rules of the skilled worker or the care workers visa is changing, and those who are foreigners in the UK might be limited when it comes to bringing their families to join them. This means they may need to cut the number of people who are eligible to bring the families. And here's the most interesting part. Guess what? It is said it's not supposed to be, or it's not affecting everyone, just those with fewer qualifications. And yes, that's it. If you are an O-level skilled worker, chances are high that you might see your family in 5 years or when you visit. This is according to the government genius, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. She is coming with very interesting issues, and you know how politicians act when elections are about to come. So you wouldn't want to, anger the voters. In fact, the general populace in the UK are unhappy with the high numbers of, immigrants. I really don't like to say this or to say some things, but they still remain fact and we still need to live with them. See, when these countries, the European countries, chose the path of seeing the Africans as humans and not some apes and monkeys, history teaches us that they had resistance from certain people within the hierarchy of power and also the community. One day I was in a conversation with a white British guy, and he said, when we were young in the 1980s and we heard that the UK has lost Zimbabwe, we were like, oh no man, Not again. You see, not everyone is in favor of the liberation or your liberties. So why should you be given free passage to their roads and do whatever you want, or come into the UK and do whatever you want and you think you're an equal? Definitely you're not an equal. You're just serving the masters. The long and short story of this, if you're in a healthcare sector having fewer qualifications and you're a foreigner in the UK, they would like it to be very difficult for you to have your husband, wife, or children join you. They're saying these current systems are too generous or they're too soft. So in other words, just work as much as you can and they can tax you as much as they can, and you can forget about your family and enjoy the privileges of waiting 5 years to become a citizen, which is, by the way, might never come to fruition, because the indefinite leave to remain, or citizenship like they call it, it's not a thing that you can just get. There are also procedures for you to become a citizen in the country. But the good thing is now you have the opportunity to be part of something big, dining with the kings and the good, former bosses. I'm pretty sure you'll be happy. Now, please note that such stringent and dramatic measures might lead to some foreigners returning back home or moving to other immigrant-friendly countries like Canada, Australia, or even America. But let me say this, maybe it might catch an eye. They're not doing this because they don't want you to go. They actually want you to leave, because they're saying there's a lot of you now in the country. I don't know who you are, but a lot of you listening to me. So imagine someone telling you that you cannot have your partner live with you. You may only visit them back in Africa or wherever you're coming from. I couldn't live like that, and I can't live like that. If not, families would definitely break down. Actually, it opens up the UK policy. They bragged in one of their websites and said, "We believe in family as a nation, and this will be a good opportunity for those coming to the UK to have their families as they work." Let me be the first one to say this. When the transatlantic slave trade was happening, families got separated. But well, this time around it's different. We now go with planes, and we no longer go on ships and whips and shackles. It's the ever-changing government policies. But would you blame me for thinking of our history with these same countries? Because they always say the past will shape the future, and they also say history repeats itself. I don't know what you think, but it's really a cause of concern. And if you're in one of these countries, the UK and etc., I think you should be now thinking of another destination, because the policies that are happening because of the elections coming might not be favorable to people. Now, on the second one, the certificate of sponsorship, which is an electronic record which migrants use to apply for a UK skilled worker visa. These COS come with conditions, and you do not work in certain places, you do not work over certain hours, and you do not start any other business. I've covered this topic a lot, so you should watch these videos before this. I've done a lot of this. So there are two types of certificate of sponsorships, or COSs. One is called the defined COS, and another one is called the undefined COS. The defined COS is the one that is used by those who are applying from outside the UK. And then the undefined COS is the one that has the migrants that are applying for another job within the UK. It's better known as a job switch, or certificate of sponsorship for you to switch a company. For those who don't know, when you get a job in the UK, you may find the working conditions severe and unfavorable. I've talked about this crisis before. Sometimes you may celebrate getting a job, only to find the job has no work hours for you, and yet you are paid by the hour. And if there are no hours, there is no work, then there's no money for you. Don't think rent and all other crucial expenses will disappear for you because the employer has no clients. Obviously, there are other challenges like the issues to do with how it's just a very, very tough environment in industry when it comes to the care sector, especially the private care sector, and quite suspicious. Most of these care companies that are treating people like this are black-owned companies. This is what we mean when we say there is more to do with how limited resources amongst black people are always used to create more confusion on each other, because these same companies that are owned by black people are the ones that are actually bringing a lot of abuse and abusive tendencies, and a lot of monies that are paid toward this certificate of sponsorship. So for us to really be fair about it, it's really not the white people who are literally selling these certificate of sponsorships or bringing these harsh conditions. Actually, they say working for a European or a British person in the UK is actually better than working for an African, because an African has a certain way of dealing with people that is not professional, according to a lot of reports. Because of these mentioned above, you're allowed to legally move from one employer to the other employer as long as they can sponsor you and give you a new visa. So to apply for this visa, you need to have an undefined certificate of sponsorship. Hope you understand this by now. So the new measures that are being proposed by the authorities are, they would like to make this recruitment process more expensive and difficult, for making sure that no one just leaves their job willy-nilly. And they're saying there is an oversight in the system, and this is creating confusion. And let's put the word confusion in bold and also in capital letters. Who is confused? My services are needed in another city within the UK. I would like to leave the company where my services cannot be used since there's no work. I want you to do this legally and pay all the fees entailed. How do I confuse you, sir? How do I confuse you, madam? Typically, an employer can have a number of certificates of sponsorship, right? They could even be increased later if there was need. This was so that the employers could fill vacancies as quickly as they arose. And the Home Office will simply ask the employer, how many do you need and what do you need them for? Or how many people intend to use the certificate of sponsorships? Officials have started to even reject applications on grounds that insufficient information would have been given. Submissions are being scrutinized more and more. They want to know about the job, they want to know about the candidate of the job, and they want to make the process so complicated and longer. Because of these changes, one might even need to employ the services of a solicitor just to get through to another expensive route. Now, they said they want to make the UK the most unfavorable immigration destination in the world. That is the vision. Now, here's the raw truth. The Labour Party is kind of like decampaigning the Conservative by pointing out at the weak immigration policy of the Tories, who are the Conservatives. So now they need to chuck the immigrants out of the country. But let's be honest, there are some things better than not wanting foreigners in your country. Things like no one is willing to do the job. In the first place, you called these immigrants to come and do your job. And if you were doing the job, you wouldn't need the foreigners in the first place. So at the end of the day, we need to be truthful about the facts that are on the ground. If the politics is to meet reality, you have to choose what you want. And if you want to choose the color of the skin of whoever is giving you services, vis-a-vis the real need that is there, that most of the youth in the UK are enjoying the public funds and benefits without going to work. And also having a high number of people who are older in the demographics and those who are young, not willing to do the job. Hence, you need to take from countries that have younger populations to come and do the job for you. And besides that, these people are not asking for the world. They are given low salaries, minimum pay wage. 2, they are limited when it comes to their opportunities, which means they are tied to those who sponsor them to come into the UK. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win. It's a trade-off. Unless if there is some form of delinquency that's happening within the society, which I highly, highly doubt. But anyway, with these, I'm going to say, if you want to not face this reality that is going to come from these elections coming in the UK, You have to choose what you want. Most people are finding Canada as a better option. So if you were someone listening to this message, Canada would be the best destination. Until next time, my name is Brother Simon. And if you found this intriguing, please subscribe, like, comment, and don't forget to find us on the next episode. Peace out.